In Washington, D.C. Tuesday, a diverse group of politicians and activists attended a press conference entitled "It's Time to Talk," which emphasized dialogue with Iran and discouraged further sable rattling. Organized for the Campaign for New American Policy on Iran, the event featured 3 60s-era red phones with Iranians on the other end of the line, allowing informal conversation between citizens of both nations.
I agree with you, and I promise you I will do everything I can.
The event featured speeches from Democratic, Republican, and Libertarian members of Congress. Also presenting were representatives from the American Conservative Defense Alliance, Iraq Veterans Against the War, and a former special advisor to Ronald Reagan.
This is a call-in campaign. It's a really good way of sending a clear message to President Bush that Congress is not going to step aside while he expands the occupation of Iraq into Iran. Negotiation isn't just the best choice for this situation. It is the right choice. It is the only choice.
Our message today is simple. It's time to talk to Iran. In fact, it is past time that we talk to Iran, because we hear the same people who supported a disastrous war of choice in Iraq. They are the same people who are now steadily beating the drum for war with Iran. One of the most important first steps we should take is to have direct, comprehensive, and unconditional bilateral talks with Iran. That is why I introduced H.R. 5056, the Iran Diplomatic Accountability Act of 2008, which directs the President to appoint a high-level envoy empowered to seek to conduct direct, unconditional bilateral negotiations with Iran for the purpose of easing tensions and normalizing relations between the United States and Iran.
And we have to do everything possible here in the Congress. The fact that we removed from legislation that had instructions that the president can't do anything against the Iranians without permission of Congress was removed from the legislation. That's atrocious. And at the same time, it was totally unnecessary. No president should go to war without consent of the Congress with a declaration of war. And yes, a lot of loudmouth, a lot of talk. But Khrushchev also told us he would bury us, and he had nuclear weapons and could have. So put it in perspective is all I ask. And there's no reason in the world why we can't practice a little bit of diplomacy. We can't talk to people. And they say, well, we can't talk to our enemies. Well, that's the people we ought to be talking to. I mean, that's when you need diplomacy. I almost say, so they have a nuclear weapon. I mean, it'd be horrible, but what about the Soviets? They had 40,000 nuclear weapons. They had them 90 miles off our shore. They had intercontinental ballistic missiles. And what did? We talked to them.
I'd like to say first that as a former CIA officer who worked on terrorism, I have no real illusions about Iran and the Iranian government. I worked in the 1980s against Iranian terrorism in Western Europe and in the Middle East. The government of Iran is not necessarily a benign institution in my point of view. And but given that, I believe that there are very serious consequences to any kind of military action against Iran. Iran does indeed control terrorism resources. Iran could make our situation in Iraq extremely difficult, could make it possibly untenable for American forces. It could attack our ships in the Straits of Hormuz. It could send, I gassed up yesterday, it was $4.89 a gallon. It could send it up to $8.89 a gallon if we had a war with Iran. So there are a lot of good reasons to be extremely cautious about the situation with Iran and to proceed in a very measured fashion.
Thank you all so much. We're now going to invite our members of Congress and former Congressman Barr to have a conversation with an Iranian, which you can see is happening currently right behind us. All of these people are talking to Iranian citizens.
This was a 22-year-old who was now looking forward to her life as a career person, an international designer. What she affirmed, in my words, was she did not want war. She wanted freedom and democracy, and she was very grateful to have us standing for that.
We talked about our occupations. This gentleman was a petroleum engineer. We talked about, I asked him how old he was. He said he was close to 60, had a birthday next week. And we emphasized the fact that, like we were talking today, we thought our government should talk. I think it shows the public that dialogue is possible. And that if we can talk people to people, then certainly our government should be able to talk.